here on HQ Spotlight as we put a bow on Week 11 in college football. Let's talk CFP predictions, shall we? And this is a look at Brad Crawford's CFP Bracket prediction. So 5 SEC teams that are in there. 2 of those getting the bye in Bama and Texas A&M, along with 2 Big Ten powerhouses in Indiana and Ohio State. North Texas, welcome to the CFP conversation. I haven't done a bracket yet where North Texas has been in. Georgia Tech, the lone wolf from the ACC, taking on Ole Miss. Texas squeezing in there, Texas Tech. Of course, as mentioned, North Texas taking on Georgia, and then Notre Dame and Oregon in Eugene in the first round. So let's welcome in the maker of the bracket, Brad Crawford, to walk us through your CFP prediction, starting with get your popcorn out type of matchup with Notre Dame and Oregon facing off in the first round, Brad.
Yeah, 9 versus 8 feels more like a quarterfinal or a semifinal than a first round matchup. But yeah, Notre Dame, as long as the Irish finish 10-2, big game Saturday at Pitt, if they win there and then win their next 2 games, I think Notre Dame gets one of those last at-large bids. First round matchup at Oregon would be tough, but I like Notre Dame to win this game. Oregon has not faced a running game as good as what the Irish will bring with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. And despite Oregon having that first round home game, I think Notre Dame is the more tested and better team athletically.
Yeah, when you have a guy in your team like Jeremiah Love, we forget about Jadarian Price, which is absolutely insane because he has been such a huge part of their run game as well. So Notre Dame moving on in that matchup. Next first round matchup, we have North Texas making it into the CFP, and the task is not easy as they take on Georgia. So I think I know how this ends. But how do you have it shaking out? Is it Georgia? Does the Cinderella story, if you will, for North Texas end here, Brad?
I think it would. I do think North Texas is going to win the American, edge out USF for that G5 auto bid. But Georgia would be a heavy favorite between the hedges against the Mean Green, somewhere around 17.5, 18.5 points, I would think. So Georgia moves on to the second round with a relatively easy win over the G5's playoff rep.
Okay, so we have Georgia moving it along. The next first round matchup, we're not talking about Miami here as the ACC representative. We're talking about Georgia Tech facing Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. So, Brad, who advances here?
Georgia Tech versus Ole Miss. Haynes King against Trinidad Chambliss. Really good, underrated, and sexy first round matchup. I think Georgia Tech is going to run the table, not beat Georgia, but they will win the ACC and get that 11th bid as the auto, but that's where it ends for Notre Dame. I think Ole Miss wins this matchup by a couple touchdowns there in the first round under Lane Kiffin.
All right, so we got Georgia and Ole Miss advancing from the SEC. We'll see if Texas can do the same here, squeaking their way into the bracket, taking on Texas Tech. So who comes out on top here, Brad?
This is going to sound like an SEC homer, but I'm going Longhorns because the schedule has just been more battle ready and battle tested for the Longhorns. Texas Tech obviously has beaten a couple of nationally ranked teams, big win over BYU this weekend. But after they face BYU again for a second time and win that rematch to win the Big 12 championship, I think Texas, as the final team in the bracket, at large, 5th team from the SEC, I think Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns go to Lubbock and win a game that will feed families in the Lone Star State.
All right, so we got 3 SEC teams advancing out of the first round and moving it along. So let's take a look at the quarters where we have Notre Dame and Ohio State. We have SEC on SEC with Georgia and Bama. Ole Miss taking on Indiana. Let's start there at the top, though, where we have Notre Dame taking on the defending national champs in Ohio State. So who do you see advancing in this scenario, Brad?
Yeah, the Buckeyes are a #1 team for a reason. They haven't lost this season, and they haven't really played a close game since that season opener against Texas, one of the teams that I think advances deep in the playoff. I think Ohio State is the overall #1. It's going to stay that way. Buckeyes win out, and they will beat Notre Dame in their first round matchup.
All right, let's go to the all-SEC quarterfinals matchup with Georgia and Bama. And, of course, we cannot forget Bama going into Georgia earlier this year. Get the win. Do they do it again, Brad?
I think they will. Georgia, right now, Alabama is sort of Kirby Smart's kryptonite, and Bama is battle-tested, as well as Georgia. But the Crimson Tide have beaten 4 ranked teams already, likely getting another ranked team this weekend at home against Oklahoma. So I think Kalen DeBoer gets to the semifinals, and beats Georgia for a second time this season.
Oh, man, anytime Georgia and Bama match up, it is absolutely must-see TV. And this other quarterfinal matchup also would be must-see TV in Ole Miss and Indiana. After seeing the catch of the year in that Indiana game, I don't know if anything can stop them now, but who punches their ticket to the semis, Brad, here in this scenario?
Yeah, I was very close to picking this as my quarterfinal upset of this bracket, but I'm going to have to side with Indiana. They showed me a lot against Penn State. Didn't play their best game, but Fernando Mendoza to go 80 yards with no timeouts, find Omar Cooper in the back of the end zone to win that game and stay unbeaten. That shows me Kirk Cignetti's team is somewhat of a team of destiny. I think they will beat Ole Miss for their first playoff win in program history.
Okay, I don't think we've had any upsets so far in terms of the quarters, so we'll see if we get it here. We have a 10 versus 2 matchup with Texas and Texas A&M. So how do you see this playing out?
This is a rematch of a regular season finale we're going to see in a few weeks. I think Texas beats Texas A&M in the regular season to give the Aggies their first loss, and then Texas A&M returns the favor against the Longhorns in a game that's going to have considerably more meaning in the quarterfinals of the playoff.
I thought we were going to get an upset there. Almost, but we didn't. Okay, so here's where we're at. The semifinals, we have Ohio State beating Notre Dame to get there, Bama beating Georgia to get there, as it is the Buckeyes and the Crimson Tide. And we have Indiana and Texas A&M, Indiana beating Ole Miss, A&M beating Texas in the quarterfinal, but maybe losing in the regular season matchup. But those are the four there, Ohio State, Bama, and one semifinal, and then Indiana and Texas A&M. So let's go to the 4 versus 1 with Bama and Ohio State. Brad, do the Buckeyes keep it rolling, or does Alabama advance?
I think Ohio State wins this game in overtime. It's going to be the best game of the playoff. Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams finally find some explosives against that really good Ohio State defense. But that defense for the Buckeyes is just so good. I see a low-scoring game, maybe a 27-20 type win in OT for the Buckeyes, and Ryan Day punches his ticket back to the playoff title game.
All right, and the other semifinal matchup brings us Indiana and Texas A&M. So who is it going to be facing Ohio State in the championship?
Yeah, Marcel Reed is going to get his revenge against Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza, I think, is going to win the Heisman Trophy for the Indiana Hoosiers, but it's Marcel Reed who outplays the Hoosiers quarterback in that semifinal and gets Texas A&M to an Ohio State versus Aggies national championship game.
All right, there you see it, the natty right there, as Brad just mentioned, Ohio State and Texas A&M. So Brad, do the Aggies get it done, or does Ohio State go back-to-back? How do you see it playing out?
I've had Ohio State as my top seed for weeks. I think the Buckeyes are going to win another national championship. Somehow they're going to get back there. They're going to play some tough teams. And, you know, I'm calling that overtime win over Alabama in the semis is probably their toughest game. But I think the Buckeyes and Ryan Day win a second consecutive national title.
In regards to toughest games, I'm sure there's a lot of Michigan Wolverine fans out there that would love to just have a comment or two, right, as they always do. Brad, we certainly appreciate it. Your CFP prediction has Texas A&M and Ohio State in the national championship, and then ultimately the Buckeyes coming out on top. So here are the odds as it stands right now to win the CFP. Ohio State, they are the favorites at 2-1, followed by Indiana, Texas A&M, Bama, and then Georgia rounding out the top 5.